The petroleum industry contributes substantially to Nigeria's economy, amounting to over 80% of the federal government's revenue. However, the potential benefits are diminished because of the existence of significant subsidies on imports of petroleum products. The removal of fuel subsidy has been one of the most contentious social-economic policy issues in Nigeria, as subsidies on imported petroleum products are considered to be an important instrument for sustaining fuel prices and hence the cost of living low. With the continued payment of subsidies on on fuel, the federal government is really experiencing a serious revenue crisis, which is now being worsened by the increased cost of fuel subsidy. If not well managed, could affect federal allocations in coming months, as the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee already recorded a decline of 63.45 billion naira in the month of April when compared to 681.33 billion naira revenue accrued in March 2021. Amid dwindling revenues and call for full deregulation of the country's downstream oil sector by the Nigerian Governors Forum, suggesting that the pump price of products should hover around 385 naira per litre. The question begging for answer is, what will be the outcome of this move to the fragile economy and, of course, the masses, that's Nigerians at large? Well, joining me, like I said earlier, is joining me via Skype is a partner at Zero Advisory and Consulting, Mr. Joseph Onwakwe. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Mr. Onwakwe. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon to you.
Yes, very quickly, we know what we've been contending with regards to the fuel subsidy saga. And just lately, for me as a Nigerian, I'm just seeing the governors coming out openly to say fuel will sell at this amount if subsidy is removed. It looks like they're now throwing their weight 100% to the removal of subsidy. Or what do you make of that move at this time when NPC has not contributed to FAC in 2 months?
Okay, there are two. For me, it's a good thing that finally the governors are joining the conversation. All the while, it looked like it was just the federal government that had a problem. I don't think people appreciated that this went all the way down to the local governments as well. So it's good that announcement by the GMD basically drew the governors out, because clearly they have seen that this is going to impact them. And it's going to impact the local governments as well, because the way it works today is that revenues, the FAC revenues, which is mostly oil revenues and the other revenue sources, you have to deduct, whether you call it subsidy on the recovery, whatever it is deducted before NNPC remits the difference to FAC for sharing, and is shared to the 3 tiers of government. So it's a good thing that finally the governors have woken up that this could impact them, and they've seen that the impact could be huge to their operations. So they are welcome to the conversation that we've been having for a long time.
So in your thoughts, what do you think would happen, or how much do you think PMS could sell for, considering the price of crude at the moment? Can we work something out? What do you think could be it? And is it right for the governors to peg the price? I think that should be an open market, demand and supply.
Yes, well, there are two ways to, again, look at this. The governors are looking at the revenue side of things. The consumer has an opinion. The consumer, what is in his long-term interest? My view, as an industry person, is that the markets they work, and the market will give the consumer a better deal than government meddling in pricing. So that's why we've been recommending a full deregulation. Maybe we need to start using a different set of terms. Maybe it's confusing to some people. We need to liberalize the downstream. We need to liberalize it completely, and that includes supply, that includes pricing, and that includes regulation as well. So we need to look at the full spectrum. The idea of the governors fixing prices does not help. So what will happen if oil price goes up to maybe $130? Are they going to go back and revise that upwards again? So my sense is that price fixing is what we need to get away from. but that's what they've done, and I understand them because they are looking at their revenues, their operations in their states, how are they going to pay salaries and all that. So that's what they are focused on. So, but the discussion we need to be having is there a plan to fully deregulate the sector? Are we at the point where we need to do this? Someone like me thinks we miss the opportunities. The best time to deregulate the sector is when oil prices are low, when people will not feel the impact yet. But we missed those windows, and now prices are high. It is becoming more and more difficult to sell that argument to the end users. So those are the things that I think we need to worry about. The timing is really bad. We are doing it at a time when oil prices are high, which means that the end product prices will be high as well. We are doing it at a time when government does not have enough fiscal buffers to provide any kind of palliative to the end user. So those are the things that bother me. I mean, are we going to have this? We will have this at some point. We can only delay it. I am convinced that the subsidy regime is unsustainable in the medium to long term. So something will give at some point. However, I would rather we have a more ordered transition. I would rather we have a well-planned, orderly transition to a full market situation than what we have now. If you listen to the Honorable Minister of State Petroleum, he talked about ongoing discussions with labor. So it looks to me like I don't see a full plan. So there are many parties here. The Governors Forum has joined the fray. Labor has been in the ditch. Government is on one side. So it just looks like we need to all get everybody together and work out a plan that will ensure an orderly transition. I sincerely think that we can't run away from deregulation. The question is, how do we do it and when? And we can have that conversation and mutually agree on the best way forward. The timing right now is really, really bad, but it is what it is. So we need to deal with the issues.
Staying with the timing issue not being too convenient for Nigerians, I'm also looking at this layman's question, which many have sent to me privately when they knew ahead of this discussion. Many believe that the marketers, in quote, could take advantage of Nigerians. On the other side, many say if the market is opened, it will be highly competitive and nobody will be able to take advantage of the other person. Now, what do you make of that? That's why they think that there should be a little bit of semblance of regulation in the sector so that it's not outrightly left for marketers to just run the business the way they might want to run it. You know, we have Forex issues and we still refine outside our country.
Yes. So a deregulated market does not mean there's no regulation. When you say it deregulate, you basically, that's why I say let's use the word liberalized. Maybe that will help people to appreciate. We're not saying that there will be no regulation whatsoever, but we're saying that there will be no fixed prices in the market. Prices will be determined by the forces of demand and supply. It does not mean there will not be any regulation. Of course, quantities, if you dispense 10 liters, it needs to be 10 liters. So that has to be, somebody needs to make sure that when I pay for 10 liters, I get 10 liters, right? So that's some regulation in the market. So there will be regulation. But the issue is price fixing. We need to go away from that. You talked about, so when I say liberalize, so it will equally imply that you have to have multiple supply sources, right? So you will open up on the supply side, and that has implications for Forex, and we can have that. And I think there has been a lot of discussions around how can the major marketers, for instance, or whoever cares to import petrol, source Forex from CBN and other. Those are the key knotty issues that we need to be trying to figure out solutions to, rather than whether or not. I don't think the discussion today should be whether or not we'll deregulate. I think we will be forced to deregulate at some point. And I always use this analogy. If you are in some skyscraper, you're going to take the wind is blowing and it's about overpowering you. You have to make a choice. You have to decide whether you're going to fall or not. If you deceive yourself and say, I'm not going to take a fall, it could jolly well be that when you do fall, you would not know which portion of your body you're going to land with. So it's better that you wake up and say, well, I'm going to take a fall. Well, I will lose my legs. I don't want to go with my head. So I position my legs. I will be a cripple, maybe, but I will still be alive. As opposed to when you have an uncontrolled fall and you hit your head, you will be dead. So I think we need to, as a nation, have those conversations and come up with a plan and say, this is how we're going to take this fall. We will take this fall. But we're not going to take it and die it and kill people in the process. We're going to do it in a very orderly and controlled manner. That is what I hope we'll be able to achieve.
Refining is key, Mr. Nwakwe, and we know what's been churned out, or the support that the Dangote refinery has gotten from the federal government and, of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria. And just recently, too, $1.5 billion was approved for the revamping of one of our refineries, Port Harcourt in particular. Now, what do you make of refining and the capacity of what we have? How soon are we going to get to that point? Because some say that the regulation might be import-driven. That might not also be too good for us as Nigerians.
It's never good at all that we're importing refined products. For a crude producer, I think that is a shame. But it is where we are. We need to face our situation squarely and deal with the issues. Domestic refining is about starting up again. Hopefully we'll get Dangote at some point, maybe next year or the other one. There are a few marginal field, small modular refinery operators who are doing primarily diesel for now. And hopefully they will scale up and start doing PMS. But it's going to all take time. The point I'm making is, in the near term, in the immediate term, let me use that, there is no solution to the importation of PMS. There's no immediate solution to that problem. It's going to take time before we get enough domestic refining capacity to produce enough PMS for the local market. It's going to take a while. But before that happens, are we going to stay still? No. I think there are a few things we need to be doing. I like all the activities around the refining space, and it's catching on. You've seen a lot of announcements here and there. Parties are entering the fray, so that's good. That will mean we will not just have domestic refining, we'll have multiple sources of supply. That is very important. That's very good. But in the near term, in the immediate term, we need to continue to service the market through importation. And we need to be able to do this not through a single source supplier, but through a liberalized scheme that allows other operators to import as well and sell at whatever prices they can. They can sell them and break it. I think that's what we need to be thinking about. Otherwise, we will continue to have this discussion on year in, year out. And at the end of the day, I don't think it serves the consuming public, neither does it serve government's interest. Think about it this way. The fears that we have about price hikes, initially you will expect that bump, but look at what happened to the SIM card, right? I bought my first SIM card at 38,000 or so. Now people are practically being handed it for free. So you have to, it's the way markets work. Right? Nobody thought when GSM that SIM cards are going to be free, really. I paid 38,000 for one at that initial time. So that you will expect things like that to happen initially until you get to some level of saturation where there's enough players and people are competing on quality and price. At that point, yes, prices will come down. But we're not going to achieve that if you have a single supplier, which is what we have today. We're not going to achieve that if we continue to fix price, which is what we're doing. So I think we need to close our eyes and take the surgery. We do have this cancer, we need to fix it. We need to get the best anesthesia there is so that that can hopefully minimize the pain on people. But are we going to take some pain? Yes, we will. But this is one of the structural challenges facing our economy that we need to fix.
Well, let's wrap up. Also, let's look at the crude oil space. We see that with the GDP figures that came up, our production stood at 1.72 million barrels per day of average production of 2.07 million. What do you make of that market? What is playing out at the moment with OPEC and OPEC Plus, everyone driving to? What do you see Nigeria stand as we move on? Because crude still remains the mainstay of our economy.
Yes. So there are two ways. There are two things happening here. One is the economies are opening up due to increased vaccination, which is a good thing. So that basically demand is recovering. On the other side is a pressure for cleaner fuels, which is what we call the energy transition. So there you have two opposing forces. So in the near term, the expectation is that demand for oil will recover well enough, and we saw that with the increase in price gradually, which means that supply was not recovering at the same pace or as fast as demand was recovering. So the expectation is that right now, if you look at the major economies, vaccination is progressing very well. Except for the issues in India, for instance, that has its own implication. But overall, globally, if you think about it, we are recovering. So that will continue. However, there's the pushback, which is, and you saw the IEA saying 3 days ago that the way to achieve a net zero economy was to basically freeze oil and gas funding. Basically, so you see these headwinds coming the other way to say, well, so in the near term, my expectation is that we will recover some. Hopefully, volumes will come back, prices will come back, things will work. But that is not going to be sustainable in the long term because the pressures pushing for a cleaner net zero world are massing up as we speak. And those will have impacts in the medium to long term. So in the immediate term, prices will hopefully get back up. Volumes, hopefully. OPEC, I hope, will relax the quotas maybe in the next 2 or 3 months, and hopefully we can pump more if we have capacity, but that's only going to last for a short while. I think the pressures on the other side will get stronger and stronger with time. So ultimately, it's not yet to hurrah for a nation like ours, so we need to go back and re-strategize on how we'll continue to weather the storm going forward. The oil economy is essentially over. We need to be thinking of something else now.
That's a strong way to leave it. The oil economy is over. Coming from you, Mr. Joseph Nwako has been speaking to us as a partner at Zera Advisory and Consulting and the past chairman of Society of Petroleum Engineers Nigerian chapter. Thank you very much for spending your afternoon with us, Monday afternoon. Really appreciate this.
Thank you very much, Tolu.